Hi, I'm Melissa. I just recently graduated from Grand Canyon, but this research I've worked on over the past 2 years, and I'll be attending ASU for graduate school in neuroscience in the fall.
My name is Colin O'Reilly. I'm a junior here at GCU studying psychology. I'm a member of Dr. O's Loyalty and Neuroscience Lab, and I am also president of the Undergraduate Research Club.
Hello everyone, my name is Hunter McKim. I'm majoring in psychology with minor in Christian theology. I'm a part of Dr. O and Dr. Brown's neuroscience lab.
My name is Diego Alvarado. I'm also a part of the neuroscience research lab with Dr. O and Professor Branham. I'm also a psychology student and I'm graduating this semester.
So this is just an overview on our research on loyalty over the past 2 years. So previous research, specifically by Jonathan Haidt, has found that we're all essentially born with the same 5 moral foundations. But as you all look up here, some of you might find that fairness and harm and care are more important to you, and some of you might find authority and purity are more important to you. So this is where our environment and our lifestyle comes into play. Jonathan Haidt gives a great example for purity. For some people, when they think of purity, they might think of religious purity or sexual purity, but to others, just their lifestyle choices and the food that they eat might come to mind. So our research is going to focus on loyalty specifically and what it is to both conservatives and liberals. So just a little background on loyalty. From an evolutionary perspective, loyalty promotes group cohesion and cooperation for survival. It also helps give people a sense of identity and a sense of self-esteem. And then previous research has shown that conservatives exhibit lower tolerance for ambiguity. They favor order and hierarchy. And liberals prioritize belief accuracy, empathy, and fairness, and they come together over shared values for this as a group.
So in order to explore this relationship between loyalty and political affiliation, we performed a quantitative study as well as a qualitative study. Our research question for both studies, you can see at the bottom there, are there differences between those who identify as liberals and conservatives in terms of the importance of loyalty? So for our quantitative study, we did convenience sampling, pulling from the student population here at GCU. You can see the results of that at the top. We had 329 conservative participants, 172 liberal participants, and 140 independent participants. As you can see, we tended to lean towards more conservative participants. That's just what GCU's population leans towards. It is a limitation to consider for future studies, but we do not believe it will significantly affect our statistics. You can see some additional demographic characteristics on the right there. Similar to the lean towards conservatism, you know the word. There was also a heavy lean towards Christianity. That makes sense since this is a Christian university. However, we still did get a fair amount of religious diversity. And again, while this is a limitation to consider, we don't believe this will heavily affect our statistics. As for how we measured loyalty among these participants, we gave them 3 questions measured on a 1 to 5 Likert scale. You can see these questions here. How much do you agree with the statement? Loyalty is the promotion of a chosen idea to be actualized through ethical means. How important is loyalty in your daily life, and how often does loyalty impact your daily decisions? Those last 2 questions we believe are the really important ones. The first question, while definitely relevant, is a bit more technical than we might like in hindsight, and it might have confused some of the participants, whereas the last 2 questions are very practical and get to the core of what we're looking at. So after we got our data from those 3 questions, we performed an ANOVA analysis. The ANOVA analysis is the classical type of statistical analysis you would use for a experiment with multiple groups. In this case, our multiple groups were conservatives, liberals, and independents. When we performed that ANOVA analysis, we found that conservatives do in fact value loyalty more. However, even if conservatives do have a statistically significant difference from liberals, and it is higher, the effect size for that statistically significant difference may not be as much as you might expect. As you can see there, the mean difference for conservatives and liberals is fairly close. They're almost only a single point away. And to really demonstrate the fact that this effect size is fairly minimal, we have this descriptive statistics table on the side. As you can see, for the question, how important is loyalty in daily life, their mean scores were almost identical, both at almost 4.5. And as for the question, how often does loyalty affect daily decisions, the mean scores for conservatives and liberals, the conservatives were higher. However, they weren't even a full standard deviation away from the liberals, which suggests that the difference isn't that much. So the basic conclusion is that even if there is statistically significant differences between liberals and conservatives, we are much more similar than we are different.
So as previously mentioned, there was qualitative research unraveled in this study. What you are viewing on the screen consists of some of the subjective questions that were given to participants. These topics included daily decision-making processes, friendships or romantic relationships, personal relationships, membership in larger groups or organizations, as well as core values and political beliefs. So only slightly more liberal participants mentioned trust in their responses than conservatives. Trust was most often described in the context of personal relationships. Conservatives often emphasized the importance of moral alignment in personal relationships. Some participants noted that loyalty to their family is unconditional, but their loyalty to organizations is dependent on shared beliefs and values. Among liberal participants, the importance of moral alignment extended to both personal and organizational relationships. Some participants referred to their loyalty to organizations in terms of their respective values with a care for moral and ethical alignment. Conservatives were more likely to emphasize the role of Christian values, as previously stated. Some explicitly mentioning Christianity as a guiding factor, whereas no liberal participants did in this instance. This suggests a stronger connection between Christianity and loyalty among conservatives. On the other hand, religious values more broadly were mentioned by a higher percentage of liberals, approximately 45%, compared to conservatives, which were approximately 37%. This indicated that while liberals may not focus on Christian values specifically, they still consider religious or faith-based beliefs when discussing this concept of loyalty. Additionally, liberals were more likely to mention the importance of political beliefs as central to their loyalty decisions compared to conservatives. Liberals exhibited slightly more concern for harm and care in this case. This suggests that liberals may place more emphasis on the impact of their loyalty on others' well-being, while conservatives focus more on moral or religious alignment. Despite discrepancies, loyalty in terms of reciprocity are nearly equal. This demonstrates the strong relevance of loyalty for both political parties consisting of liberals and conservatives.
So as Colin mentioned earlier, some of our limitations of the study was just GCU being a Christian school, so we're going to naturally lean towards having more conservative population. That basically affects all of our limitations, such as our sample and our sampling bias. But this actually lays really good future research frameworks and foundations because we first just broadly defined what conservatism and liberalism was with just two simple categories. So in the future, we'll be able to dive into those a lot further since those are such broad and deep different political affiliations. And realizing what our population looks like here at GCU, we can take advantage of that in our future research to further explore the GCU environment and what our population here is, what they report in our studies. So what this means, what our research is displaying, what we have found is against popular and contrary belief. What the media is trying to tell us is that we actually have a lot more in common than we think. We all value loyalty. We all value all those moral frameworks, those traits that we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. It's just our experiences, as Melissa said, that qualify us into certain political affiliations and then our relationships to that virtue. So although conservatives did rate loyalty, they valued it more than liberals, we still all have the same, we still value as a virtue. So for example, conservatives might value authority and institutional organization more compared to liberals where they might question authority and question institutional loyalty, but they still value it at their core. So in conclusion, when examining loyalty, our research shows that both conservatives and liberals value loyalty very highly.
And another thing this project was really used for, as Diego mentioned, we defined conservatives and liberals in very broad terms just because this was our first study and we couldn't really get into the deeper ideological frameworks. But now that we have a basis and we found that they are more similar than they are different, so we can really go after those deeper broad party categories. and explore how do those subcategories relate to certain loyalty concepts and how do they value certain moral dimensions more than the others. And that will allow us to more accurately understand how certain political parties and subparties build ideologies.
And then additionally, the recognition of the nuances that were mentioned here can give us a better understanding of the root of political division, and we can begin to foster more productive and empathetic conversations across ideological lines.
Yeah, the study also helped us as students get practice with quantitative and qualitative data. I know for me, going into my master's, this has been very helpful. I'm going to use a lot of the information I've learned from this project.
As for me, I am planning on going into research full-time for my career. So as Melissa mentioned, getting to do a quantitative and qualitative analysis is extremely relevant since those will be the analysis I am using in my eventual career field. And furthermore, getting to do both of them at the same time with the same data is really helpful because a lot of times people will either choose to go the quantitative route or the qualitative route for their whole career. So getting to experience both of them early on is not only really good for resume building, but also for just understanding both processes.
And then for me, the title of this presentation is It Takes Two Wings to Fly, It Takes Both Wings. So for me, it's been really nice to look at the current research, do our own research, and contribute to this modern conflict between the parties and realize like, hey, we actually all need to see where we have similarities versus differences. So I just love learning, I love research, and it's been amazing to help contribute to the world through research and bring us together versus divide us.
I'm a man of simple words. I'm with these guys. Overall, it was a good immersive experience into what is entailed by different fields of research, especially when it's multidisciplinary in this sense. It also gave me a better idea as to what I may encounter in the future if I continue studying psychology at a higher level.
And a thank you to Dr. Rowe for supporting all this research.
And Dr. Branham.